Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. I sound a little too spry for the news that we're about to tell you guys, and that is about the injury report that we want to kind of detail today. Andrew Thomas been limping around practice for the majority of the week, and that is something that strikes fear into the hearts of even the most pessimistic of Giants fans. And Andrew Thomas has been that stone wall of a left tackle, deleting Cam Jordan last week, having such a great start to his sophomore season in 2021. And now we're looking at a potential scenario where he's questionable for this upcoming game against Dallas, which we really, really needed him. He had a foot injury. It's unrelated to his ankle injury that he had last year, but it is a foot issue. Rex Ryan will be hyped about that, but that's for another day. And essentially, this foot issue that he suffered against the Saints is now rolling over, and he's been limping. He's been favoring his off foot, pretty heavily during practice this week. So that's a pretty big, hit for this Giants offensive line, Anthony, which we also want to talk about as a primary catalyst for the success of Daniel Jones in the past few weeks and really this 2021 season, his third year as a quarterback in the NFL. Before we dive into all this somewhat bad stuff, somewhat good stuff, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing really good, and I'm really hoping just somehow Andrew Thomas can play. I know we got a couple players that were just declared out. Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, Jabril Peppers, some big losses there, but the biggest loss of all would be Andrew Thomas if he were not to suit up, in my opinion. He has been a rock at left tackle for the Giants this season. He's really turned the corner and come into his own, and he's been huge for the development of Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is playing much better. We're all saying that the Jones chies, right? We're saying Daniel Jones is a franchise quarterback. I don't think we're getting this level of franchise quarterback play from Daniel Jones if not for Andrew Thomas and his development from last season to this season. So Andrew Thomas, one of the most important players on the Giants right now in my eyes. So I'm really hoping that he somehow gets healthy enough to play on Sunday. Honestly, I think even a somewhat hobbled Andrew Thomas is probably better than Nate Solder or Matt Peart at this point. I hate to say that, the Giants just don't have a lot of offensive line depth. We've been discussing that for weeks now. Ben Bredesen also out on Sunday. So there's more offensive line depth missing for the Giants. So it's very important to me. Andrew Thomas, if he doesn't play this week, he shouldn't even practice at all next week. Just rest up and get ready for next Sunday because we need him out there just as badly as we need any other player on this football team.
I honestly, every game after last week's win is a must-win, in my opinion. Every game that we lose puts us further in the back burner of the NFC East. And I'll tell you what, this is a must-win game for us against Dallas. We got to show them that we are not going to back down. And not having your left tackle, we saw how well Daniel Jones played last week against the Saints with a really strong offensive line. They really played probably the best game they have in the past 2 years. Andrew Thomas being a big, big part of that, protecting his blind side, giving him that confidence. If they have to move Matt Peart to left tackle, I don't think they're going to do that, Anthony. I think they're going to have Nate Solder go to left tackle, and I think they're going to put Matt Peart at right tackle because that is ultimately the only way this works, right? That's the only alternative here. I don't trust Matt Peart at, right tackle. They haven't even given him a chance. Why the hell are you going to put him on Daniel Jones's blind side? That's the worst thing you could possibly do. In my opinion, you take Nate Solder, you put him at his natural position at left tackle, and then you just have Matt Peart, survive at right tackle, maybe pull up Isaiah Wilson, hope for the best, at least have somebody to go in there if need be, because they don't really have much tackle depth after those guys. But again, they haven't ruled out Andrew Thomas yet. He's not ruled out of this game. He's questionable. He has been limping around pretty gingerly, but again, he's not totally out yet. But even if he is injured out there, he's not going to be able to perform at the highest of levels. But I'll say this. He played pretty well last week, and it seems like he injured the foot at some point in the game, and he finished the game really strong despite the injury. So they'll probably juice him up with some freaking painkillers and be like, go out there and just, we'll deal with this another day. Because at the end of the day, what could this possibly be? Maybe someone stepped on his foot. It doesn't seem to be ankle related. It seems to be more foot related. He said it's sore. Maybe someone stepped on him. Maybe he has turf toe. It could be a variety of things.
The one thing that I'm really hoping it's not, I think it's plantar. What's the second word?
Fasciitis. I've gotten
Plantar
that before,
fasciitis.
and it
I'm
hurts like
really,
hell.
really hoping it's not that because I know that that's something that when NFL players have to deal with, it is a long timetable for recovery. I know there's many players that have dealt with that in the past. I remember famously Peyton Manning dealt with that in the past, and it really hindered his performance for several weeks. And that's obviously occurred for many players in the league. I believe that is the part of the foot that Xavier McKinney broke last year. So again, I think just that section of the foot needs to be avoided. I'm really hoping that that's not what Andrew Thomas has injured, because that would be a significant injury long term. So hopefully, like you said, hopefully someone just stepped on it and it's a little sore and bruised, and he's able to recover in like a week or two. That's really what I'm hoping.
Yeah, I mean, I've had plantar fasciitis before, and I'll tell you what, it feels like somebody is cutting the middle of your foot down the middle with a knife. That's what it feels like. And the only way to really solve that, if you push it too far, is you really, I mean, of course, maybe you'll need surgery, maybe you need to like I'll have a long time to recuperate. But the one thing that really helped me was changing the sole of my foot, of my shoe. Give yourself, usually it happens when you maybe have a too arched foot and you're wearing too flat of a sole, or vice versa. Like it has to conform to your foot. So usually that helps a lot. But I don't think it's plantar fasciitis. I think that would, that might have been a solvable thing if you didn't overdo it. But I think, also these guys have the shoes, necessary. I think at this point, he's never been a problem for him in the past. Someone probably stepped on his foot. Maybe he got turf toe. Maybe it bent a certain way. Maybe someone landed on him and his foot got lodged. Who knows? It could have been anything. But at the end of the day, he's questionable. So he was not ruled out, right? He's walking around. He practiced like very limited today. He obviously was out the day before that. I think on what was it, on Wednesday? He was out of practice. He was limited on Thursday, limited today. He was standing around. He was talking to the media. He seemed like he was preparing to play. Like he seemed like he was, he's about it. So we'll see what he can do if he has that pain tolerance. If they juice him up with some painkillers and be like, go out there, do your best. Worst case, will pull you. But that's a huge loss, Anthony. How confident are you in this offensive line, especially coming off a week that they looked awesome and they really did well against a pretty solid pass rush? How confident are you without Andrew Thomas that Daniel Jones can still get the job done? Obviously, a huge hit there. That's a major, major loss if he's not able to play, especially against a Dallas team whose pass rush is actually doing really, really well with Micah Parsons really stepping up. And of course, they have Gregory as well and a couple other pretty solid players. DeMarcus Lawrence isn't available, but they're still figuring out ways to get pressure. If Daniel Jones doesn't have time in the pocket, this is going to be a shootout, and they need him to be slinging the ball. They need him to have protection. If he doesn't have protection, it's going to be a long, long day for Daniel Jones, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a long day for any quarterback when they don't have protection. And for Daniel Jones, when we've seen the film from the last 3 weeks, when the offensive line has played well, he has played kind of out of his mind, okay? If we just did a film breakdown yesterday on the game versus the New Orleans Saints, the Giants used a lot of play action to buy Daniel Jones time in the pocket and to really open things up in the passing game for him. But also, they used it and they actually got a lot of great protection from the offensive line, not even just the play action. Like the offensive line just played a very good game and kept Daniel Jones clean, and it just allowed him to see the field better and allowed Jason Garrett to call some more plays that allowed the team to go downfield and take some downfield shots, and Daniel Jones hit those like he usually does. So the offensive line playing a good game is very important for Daniel Jones. But even on the plays where he was under pressure the past couple of weeks, I remember against Washington, there were a few plays in week 2 where he was under pressure but still delivered some dimes. If you remember the dropped touchdown pass by Darius Slayton, Jones got put on his ass on that play and still threw a dime to Slayton in the end zone. Slayton just dropped it, right? So Daniel Jones is still playing well under pressure, but when the offensive line is upright, Jason Garrett is playing well. That's the key to me. Jason Garrett's calling a better game and calling a more downfield approach when the offensive line is playing well. So that's really the key here. Jason Garrett is going to take Daniel Jones where he needs to go, right? Daniel Jones is going as far as Jason Garrett lets him. And Jason Garrett is going as far as the offensive line lets him. So if the offensive line isn't playing well, Jason Garrett's playbook gets limited and Daniel Jones gets stuck playing crappy football because he's in a bad scheme again. So for the offensive line, it is a domino effect. If the offensive line can have a good performance on Sunday, then yes, Daniel Jones, Jason Garrett, the Giants will have a good offensive performance. But if that offensive line is extremely shaky, it's going to have a domino effect that's going to impede on the offensive play calling. And then that, of course, will constrain what Daniel Jones is able to do on the football field.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the offensive line, Matt Skura, I think he's probably your, cemented left guard for the foreseeable future. Ben Bredesen didn't even play as well as him, and it was Matt Skura's first time playing left guard in his career. So I think, if Ben Bredesen's going to be out this game, roll with Skura. Hopefully, it's another good game. But Andrew Thomas even said, when you have so much rotation there, it's hard. It's difficult because the communication lacks at times. If you have a guy like Will Hernandez next to him, they have a lot of experience. You don't need to communicate a lot of things. But when you have new players there, you saw all game long Skura, tapping Billy Price on the leg. That was their way of communicating maybe the snap count or whatever it was, trying to figure out, like what snap count it was or what play it was, just communicating in that way. So they were doing a lot of things to try and make it easier for Skura during that game. But not having Andrew Thomas there, you moving Nate Solder over, this offensive line just needs to stop with the changes. They need to stay healthy. They need to remain consistent. The continuity is a huge part of good offensive line play. They finally had a good game, and Andrew Thomas is now questionable. It's such a kick in the leg, man. Just a Charlie horse in the leg. Every week there's something different going on with the offensive line, which is obviously the catalyst for Daniel Jones' success, not having to worry about his blind side, being able to step up, see his vision side, see Nate Solder getting beat all the time and really react. So it's low-key shot at Nate Solder, but he's doing okay for what they're asking him to do, coming in off an opt-out year, going to play right tackle first time since 2011. I'll give him credit where it's due for stepping in and really starting when he really shouldn't have been in the first place. I'll tell you what, if he has to move over to the left tackle and they have Matt Pert at right tackle, it's going to be a mess, man. Like, I don't expect it to be going well. They're going to be a lot of short plays. Kadarius Toney, who I'm starting in fantasy football, is going to feast because a lot of their route concepts are going to be short, bubble screens, trying to get their playmakers in space, and really activate that way. But like, it's going to be tough, man. Like, there's no way around it, Anthony. And then of course you have Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard, Jabril Peppers, all expected to miss this game with hamstring injuries. They're eyeing a week 6 return. So that's kind of where they're looking ahead. Week 6, make a comeback there, fully healthy. But Sterling Shepard, probably not going to have him. Probably not going to have Darius Slayton. How are you feeling about that? Do you think that's even maybe a benefit for the offense, really getting John Ross and Kadarius Toney even more action there, more reps, more time to adapt? I don't see Darius Slayton missing this game as a major negative. I see Sterling Shepard as a major negative. But I do like the fact that we're going to see more Toney, more Ross, and really have them become more implemented in this offensive scheme, which I think they did a phenomenal job last week making big plays for this unit.
I think that Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton are both big losses because anytime you have players out with injury, your next fear is, God, please don't let anyone else get injured, right? If, God forbid, Toney or Galladay were to pull some hamstrings, well, who's going to step in after them? I actually don't even know who's at the bottom barrel of this roster at this point. I know Colin Johnson saw some playing time. Who's behind him? CJ Board, Colin Johnson, Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, like the depth is now lacking due to the fact that Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton are both ruled out on Sunday. So I am not necessarily happy about that in any way. Sure, I understand where you're coming from. John Ross is going to see more playing time. So is Kadarius Toney. They're going to be more involved with the offense, but they can be equally involved with the offense while having a guy like Sterling Shepard also involved with the offense on third downs, being that dependable guy, being that red zone threat that the Giants are missing, right? So there are plenty of ways to get all of these players involved when they're all on the field. The Giants, yes, in a way, do have an embarrassment of riches, which is why they might want to look into trading one or two of these pieces down the road. But right now, what the offense just finally starting to click, to have these guys injured, I don't think is necessarily going to benefit anybody, because if they were able to get in there, or if there are any injuries on Sunday, right, then that offense is going to start to falter. Just as it was starting to pick up momentum and pick up some steam, then it's going to falter, and there's not going to be anybody viable to step in and make some plays in replacement of a guy like a Kenny Galladay or a Kadarius Toney. And Kenny Galladay is also a player that we know has dealt with multiple injuries so far this season, and many injuries throughout his career. So I'm always a little worried about him, and always hoping that he stays healthy and that we have a viable backup to step in his place. Darius Slayton would actually be the viable backup to step in Kenny Galladay's place, but instead it's going to be Colin Johnson, who is really WR5 or 6 at this point, is going to have to elevate all the way to WR1 status. Not ideal. So Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, I hope that they get healthy enough soon to return. Hopefully week 6 they are back on the field. But right now, looking at the Giants offense, I'm very excited for this to be the Kenny Galladay and Kadarius Toney show in the passing game. This is a game, too, where when you're looking at the Dallas Cowboys defense, the Giants should actually consider running the ball less than 20% of the time. They should be slinging that rock all day long.
Be
Daniel Jones
aggressive.
should be throwing that ball to Kenny Galladay, to Kadarius Toney constantly. It should be a serious passing game where Daniel Jones is just put out there and given the opportunity to throw for 450 yards and make some freaking plays. So that's how I'm feeling about the offense this week and about the receiving core in general. Even though there are 2 costly injuries, I think it's going to be all right. But the game plan has to be feeding those guys that we were talking about with Kenny Galladay and Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, and Dallas fans are feeling pretty optimistic about their chances this week, and they're looking at Trayvon Diggs up against Galladay, following him around the field. And you know what? It's possible, but Galladay comes out of the slot sometimes. They try to move him around. They try to get him on mismatches, and Diggs is primarily that right boundary. If you're the defense looking at the offense, he's primarily playing on the right boundary. So we'll see kind of how he lines up here. It's going to be interesting to see if he goes up against God the entire game, if he goes up against John Ross. But he's having a good year, man. Trayvon Diggs is having himself a very, very solid start to the season. He's got a couple interceptions already. He has 5 interceptions through. That's ridiculous. He has 5 interceptions through 4 weeks. That is absurd for a
Yeah,
cornerback in his
it's
second
insane.
season.
It's insane.
So he's starting off. He's at an average of at least 1 interception per game. And he also has been penalized 5 times. So he has his weaknesses. Galladay's a big, big, big receiver. He's going to have some trouble with him undercutting those routes. Don't throw quick outs to his side. He will undercut them. He's a very aggressive corner. So if you're Evan Ingram and you're Daniel Jones and you're Jason Garrett, do not be throwing quick outs to the side of Trayvon Diggs. He will see it and he will undercut those routes. So you have to be careful there. I saw some Dallas fans thinking that Micah Parsons might be playing quarterback spy on Daniel Jones. That could be a good move for them. Just kind of waiting for the opportunity, kind of like the Carter Coughlin role that we played against the Saints last year, waiting for Russell Wilson to move out of the pocket and then attack those pockets, attack those gaps, waiting for him to come out of the pocket, maybe try to make a run for it. Carter Coughlin wrapped him up a couple times, got a couple sacks there, a couple tackle for losses. This is going to be really interesting to see how Dallas manages Daniel Jones, who's having a really great start to the year. But it really comes down to not making bad decisions and not turning the football over. Daniel Jones cannot revert back to his old self because he's like I always say, he's a momentum-based quarterback. If he's continuously playing well, he's going to get better and better and better. But the second he has a bad moment, the second he has a bad game, he crumbles. And that's what scares me the most about DJ. He needs to maintain that strength, maintain that confidence, and that willpower. So Dallas' defense are going to try and dial up some unique things. Andrew Thomas said they love to do a lot of stunts, a lot of twists, a lot of turns in the trenches to try and throw them off. They're very athletic defensive front there. So, trying to mitigate that is going to be difficult. Expect a lot of, bubble screens to Kadarius Toney, a little short yardage stuff to get him into space. I think he's going to be, with Sterling Shepard out, he's going to be their primary target. Galladay will be getting involved as well, obviously, but they're going to be running RPOs. They're going to be running play action. They're going to keep running this offense. I think it's good enough to keep that defensive front, or really the whole defensive unit for Dallas, on their toes and really curious to what is going on there. But Anthony, you have any last thoughts on how Dallas might approach this game and how the Giants might be able to just give themselves a little bit of breathing room, because it's going to be tough?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game. Obviously, this is an uphill battle for the Giants going up against, an amazing offense with the Dallas Cowboys. But I've been saying it all week. The way you're going to beat this team, you're going to beat a good offense with good offense. So for the Giants, I'm really not even looking at their defense this week. I'm mainly just studying both offenses of this game because I think that's what it's going to come down to. The Giants defense, they're going to do their best to try and slow down the Dallas Cowboys offense, but ultimately, Dallas is probably going to hang 30 on our heads. We just have to do the same. That's the thing. The Giants haven't scored over 30 points in 20 games. That has to change this week. The Giants aren't winning unless that changes that week, in my opinion. That's my outlook on this game. If the Giants crack 30 points, they're in it and they have a chance of winning. If they don't, I don't think they got a chance, man. They have to get some points on the board because Dallas, best believe they're going to get some points on the board. So that's really the key to winning this game to me. The Giants offense just has to light it up. Obviously, that starts with good offensive line play. Then that starts with Daniel Jones continuing to play at the high level that he's been playing at. And then that leads into Jason Garrett getting the most out of his playmakers, those skill position players, Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, using the RPOs, using the read option, using that triple option that he tried to run last week but unsuccessfully ran. They just handed it off. But, man, if Daniel Jones kept that thing, he might have had a big game if you review the film. I watched that one. So the Giants have some plays that they've left out there, even last week on a great offensive performance. I mean, end around to Evan Engram, they have some plays that they left out there. But they're still ironing that stuff out. They iron that out this week. They don't run that end around, and instead they run a little tricky play to Kadarius Toney instead. They might have scored on that drive. And I think the Giants know that now. So they're going to go ahead into this next game and say, all right, let's take some of these plays out of our playbook that haven't been working. Let's reassign those plays, give them to guys like Kadarius Toney and Kenny Galladay. Those are our playmakers. Let's run the offense through them. Saquon Barkley even. And let's go score 30-plus points and get a win on Sunday.
Yep, and before we wrap up here, guys, the main point I'm going to say is when they have opportunities to score, if they're in the red zone, they can't walk away without any points. We've seen the Giants do this too many times where they've turned the ball over in the red zone, or they kick a field goal. They got to score touchdowns in this game. It is touchdowns or lose. That is against this Dallas offense. Kellen Moore is in his bag. That is what Dak Prescott said. He's killing it with the play calling. The Giants, if they do not, it's straight up. If they do not score touchdowns, they will lose this game. They cannot win this game on field goals. Joe Judge needs to be aggressive in this game. He needs to go for it on fourth downs. He needs to be aggressive, take advantage, take what the defense is giving him, and really dial up some good plays, get the ball in his playmaker's hands, let Kadarius Toney eat. In the red zone too, because he's the guy who makes so many people miss. If you're second and goal and you're 8 yards out, he will find a way to the end zone, man. Like, he is capable of breaking tackles, making guys miss, picking up those extra yards. He will get there. Just got to give him the opportunity. So I'm excited to see how they can do that, especially for my fantasy team. I want him to absolutely feast this week. So I'm excited about it, guys. But make sure to subscribe below Apple, Spotify, and YouTube as always. Have a fantastic Friday. Have some drinks. Enjoy the weekend. Prepare for Sunday. We're going to have fun. We'll be live streaming before the game as always. We'll catch you guys tomorrow with some new content.